Hello everyone, I'm going to talk about photosynthesis. Can you guess what is this in the background? Well, you have already seen uh, the text over here. It's about some leaf cells. And what do you think about the color? Why is it green? So the green color is because of the presence of some elements or some organelles actually that's called chloroplast. And these organelles are specialized and they have chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is the reason for being green because chlorophyll is a pigment and the color is green, so that's why you can see as a green color. What is the function of this chlorophyll and chloroplast? Well, chlorophylls are the pigments that are absorbing energy and light, and they can transfer that light to make ATP or energy. That's what we are going to find out and study at this point. The essential idea on this section or photosynthesis is that photosynthesis is a process that uses the energy from the sunlight and turn that energy into chemical energy. So receiving energy from light and changing to another type of energy, which is a chemical energy. And do you still remember this energy is stored in what type of molecule? Yes, that would be nice that you remember. ATP is the molecule that will be stored as a form of energy after photosynthesis. Okay. Understanding, application, and skills. What we are supposed to learn at the end of this section. Briefly, I can say that photosynthesis is the production of carbon compounds. What are these carbon compounds? Yeah, definitely glucose. That would be the result of the photosynthesis after usage of the light energy. Visible light has the range of the wavelength with violet to the shortest and the red to the longest. So if you have the wavelength, like if it is violet, then for the longer one would be like this. For red one, for violet would be like this. So this is show how the wavelength is looking like in the graph. Chlorophyll absorbs red and blue light most effectively and reflects green light more than the other colors. So it absorbs red and blue and reflects green. That's why we see leaves in a green color, because if it's the leaf, then that would be the light coming, and leaf is reflecting green. So if the leaf is reflecting green, this means that what we can see as a reflection, and then it absorbs blue, so we don't see blue color, and it absorbs red, so that's why these two colors are absorbed by the leaves, so we don't see that color and reflection. And green color is what we see, but actually it's something that plants don't like it, and they don't use the green color, but we see everything as green, and we think everything, if it is green, is the best because we see as it green. But definitely green is not the color that photosynthesis is using. Okay, students should note that visible light has wavelength between 400 and 700 nanometers, but they don't expect to recall the wavelength of specific colors of light. You just need to know the range of the colors between 400 and 700. And what does that mean? Oxygen is produced in photosynthesis from the photolysis of the water. So if the water is getting photolysed or photolysis, then oxygen will be produced. And the oxygen so is coming from the photolysis of the water. Energy is needed to produce carbohydrates and other compounds from carbon dioxide. Temperature, light intensity, carbon dioxide concentration, these are all variable. So these are also variables and possible limiting factors on the rate of photosynthesis. This means that by changing these, the rate of photosynthesis can be changed. And some changes in the Earth atmosphere and also oceans and rock deposition due to photosynthesis. So what happens if the photosynthesis changes, and what happens to the changes atmosphere? Drawing an absorption spectrum for chlorophyll and an action spectrum for photosynthesis. So you need to learn what is it's the drawing activity, and then you need to learn what is the absorption spectrum and what's the difference between absorption spectrum and action spectrum. So there are two different things, and you need to know how to draw it. Design of experiments to investigate the effect of limiting factors on photosynthesis. This is a practical 4, as you can see over here. And working with plants and doing photosynthesis and related experiment is one of the necessary experiment that we need to do in the class. If you want to get the water free of dissolved carbon dioxide, then we need to boil and then cool. That would be okay. Chromatography. So we have the paper chromatography, and we use for separation of the pigments. It's like the chromatography is here, and then by the separation you will see different colors and different pigments are ranging over the paper based on the weight and the characteristics, and you can see the different colors. This is the general formula for photosynthesis, and in this formula you will see that by the usage of the carbon dioxide and water and the sunlight, the final product would be C6H12O6, which is the glucose, and the production of the oxygen. Photosynthesis has two series of reactions: light-dependent and light-independent reactions. What is a light-dependent reaction? In light-dependent reactions, light is necessary because the energy is coming from the sunlight. So photosynthesis has two series of reactions: light-dependent reactions and light-independent. What happens in dependent? In this series of reactions, the energy and the light is necessary because the light is coming and will be absorbed by the chlorophylls, which are the place for getting excited by the energy of the light. And what are the products from the light-dependent reactions? The production of the ATP is one of them. So in this series of reactions, ADP is changed to ATP as a form of energy, and water molecules will be separated and also by the production of the oxygen. So we have two things happening over here: production of the ATP and photolysis of the water molecule by the release of the oxygen. This is what's happening in the light dependent. What about the light-independent reactions? In light-independent, the energy who has already been stored as a form of ATP will be used for the fixation of the carbon dioxide. What does that mean? Those carbon dioxide will be fixed into a molecule which is called glucose, and this process will be done by the chloroplast, by the help of the chloroplast, and the energy of the ATP will be stored in the chemical bonds of this molecule. So because this molecule has it's a large molecule and has chemical bonds, that's the way that the energy will be stored as well. These reactions and processes that absorb the energy from the surrounding, these are called endothermic. So endothermic are the reactions that they get the energy and they absorb the energy from the surroundings. Glucose molecules that will be produced by the photosynthesis in plants, they can also convert into different types of shapes and other forms of the molecules, which are the bigger molecules. For example, if you remember, there's a revision, it's glucose, and the units of the glucose can produce a polysaccharide, and this polysaccharide could be as a form of a starch. And if you remember what was the structure of the starch, which is called amylose, and these polysaccharides could be as a form of cellulose as well. So it depends on the need of the plant. Some of them will be stored as a form of a starch. For example, potato is made of a starch, and cell wall, which is necessary for the plant cells, are made of cellulose. And all of them, the unit is glucose, but the way that they are having bond with each other, and the carbon number that they are making these units together are different, and the branches also are different. So if you want to remember, you have to go back to the related unit that we have already discussed about the differences. If you remember what was the condensation, think about it. It was the combination of the two glucose molecule, by releasing the water, OH from here and H from here, and making a bond, which is a glycosidic bond. This is called condensation. And this is the way that the two molecules are getting together to make a disaccharide by condensation. This is a review, actually, middle school review, electromagnetic spectrum. I think you remember that in your school in the past. What is this? So let's start with a simple explanation that we call these as the frequency. So these are the number of the waves is called as the frequency, and the length of the wave is like this. Each wave has this length. So we have two definitions for here, frequency and the length of the wave, which is called wavelength. So if there are more frequency, is it a less wavelength or more wavelength? Pause the video. Yes, if this is more frequency, then this is less wavelength, and the more frequency has more energy, and the less frequency has low energy. That's what is happening. Okay, so all radiation has a frequency and a wavelength, and waves with a low frequency are more spaced out, so have a longer wavelength, and vice versa. The high frequency are like UV, X-rays, so ultraviolet, which is UV, this is also considered as high frequency. X-ray, also high frequency, and gamma ray, of course. And these are harmful for living because they are they have a lot of energy, and they are harmful for living organisms, and because they cause damage to cell and DNA, and also they cause the skin cancer and tumors. So that's why you have to take care of yourself. Be careful when you are taking X-ray photography. That's why you are wearing a lot of things to because it is harmful, and you have to go to the specific room if you want to take the X-ray photo. And the UV or ultraviolet. The visible light is just in this area, which is between 400 nanometer and 700 nanometer. So if you look at this range of the spectrum, you will see that this is a short part, which is considered as visible light. So only a small part of electromagnetic can be observed or can be visible by your eyes. The pigments in photosynthetic organisms, like chlorophylls, they are absorbing useful wavelength of light, those that contain energy appropriate for photolysis in the light-dependent reaction. So these chlorophyll pigments, they just need the appropriate wavelength for their own function and for doing the photolysis. And because of that, we have this graph, and we will explain this graph in the next slide, because it is important that which wavelength is used by the chlorophyll pigment, followed by photolysis of the water molecules. And once we study this graph, that would be absorption spectra for photosynthesis or action spectra. So we have two definitions: action spectrum or absorption spectrum. I think we have already discussed about this. This is a green plant which includes chlorophyll. It reflects green color. It reflects green. Sorry, not green color. It reflects green light. So that's why we see it as green light, and it absorbs blue and red light.